Well, it makes you sick to your stomach, I think, for the fate of America.
She's just not doing her job, then I could absolutely foresee President Trump remove her.
I don't think President Trump likes people or reporters or the media going after his cabinet officials. He doesn't want to hand them a scalp.
Joining me from the United States is our great panel of Reagan Reese, White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, and Patrice Onwuka, Economic Policy Director at the Independent Women's Forum. Good evening, everyone. Look, I want to start with what we've been talking about tonight, Pam Bondi. Reagan, I'm going to start with you. Last night we had Jim Comer telling us that Pam Bondi had serious questions to answer over her handling of the Epstein files, and today it appears she has really riled up the MAGA base with her suggestion that hurty words need policing. Hardly the legacy of Charlie Kirk we've come to expect, right?
Oh, yeah. She still has questions to answer. You know, this morning I was on a radio station actually in Washington, D.C., and I said I was puzzled by Pam Bondi's comments because J.D. Vance gave this great monologue yesterday hosting the Charlie Kirk show, which was really the strongest, clearest message we've seen from the White House on how they were going to respond to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And then Pam Bondi turns right around and does this. And I actually, as soon as I got off the air, I had a text from a DOJ staffer sending me Pam Bondi's statements, kind of doubling down on what they've said. And throughout the day, that's more or less what we've seen from the administration. We saw Pam Bondi give a statement to Axios and say that she's more going after those who incite violence. But overall, the response from the administration to Pam Bondi's comments have been doubling down and supporting her, which I don't think is what the base wants to see.
This is at times a freewheeling administration. No one can say it was anything otherwise. You've seen the president up close. You fire questions at him most days, as far as I can see. Do you really think that he's on board with this?
Well, I was thinking about this when you were asking your previous guest about his response today. I don't think President Trump likes people or reporters or the media going after his cabinet officials. He doesn't want to hand them a scalp. And so he's going to stay with them and stand next to them. I think he's very sick of the Epstein files and the mess that was created by his administration. And so I'm sure that a part of him is annoyed that he is, having to fight off the media and these questions. But largely, we've seen the president stand by his cabinet when they have committed errors. And so I have to imagine that he thinks this will probably blow over. But that's just a guess through my time spent with the president.
Patrice, the right, conservatives have spent years campaigning for the right for small business owners, for example, to be able to say, no, I don't want to bake a wedding cake for a gay wedding or whatever it is that they dispute. Yet now we're hearing Pam Bondi say to business owners that they have to print posters for Charlie Kirk supporters, whether they agree with them or not. What is going on here?
Yeah, I think this is a tough one for some conservatives, which is what is the difference between, actually challenging individuals who are, maybe expressing their ridiculous, inappropriate comments over Charlie Kirk and even withholding their business versus those who are choosing to do something like that based on a religious belief. In the instance of cake bakers, for example. So this is not going to come to an end. I think there is a difference between this and cancel culture. I don't necessarily see these examples of doctors being removed for cheering that Charlie Kirk was dead and the nurse who called him out being reinstated. I think that's actually a good thing, and as you were discussing the previous panel. But does it mean that if you get fired as a FedEx worker for not making that poster? Well, FedEx has every right to do that as a private individual business, to say that staffer does not reflect their their brand and what they believe in, which is the right to free speech, and against people who will take that right away from others.
But is it not a slippery slope? You start with gay cakes and you end up with people in cuffs. In Britain, we've had comedians, and a comedian who made a joke in America, arrested when landing in London for something that was hosted on an American server, written in the state of Arizona, and was a joke. Do you not fear this is a slippery slope and the start of a descent into cancel culture?
Well, I think the impetus is different here. There is a very radical, violent streak, particularly in the left, that is creating, honestly, an assassination culture that's mainstreaming the idea of violence against anyone who is coming from a conservative perspective, a MAGA perspective. And it's so interesting when we look at YouGov polling that was taken last Wednesday on the day that Charlie Kirk was murdered. You look at the difference in the support at close to about 40% of self-identified liberals and strong liberals think it's okay for political violence against someone that you disagree with, compared to conservatives where it was 6%. So I think that there is a difference between what we're seeing here in America versus what we've seen in England.
Reagan, do you agree with that or disagree? I mean, we're seeing people dancing on the streets, I believe in New York, of the CEO murderer Luigi Mangione, who's no longer being tried as a terrorist. And, people are literally dancing in the streets. What's going on?
Well, it makes you sick to your stomach, I think, for the fate of America. I think exactly what Patrice is describing is exactly the mindset within the administration and the White House, how they are going to respond and how they're going to attack this. I think within the mainstream media, I spent a lot of time at the White House amongst these legacy media reporters who are the vibe that I'm getting is that they want to move on and that they've kind of seen enough of this and they're eye rolling at the response to Charlie Kirk's assassination attempt, which assassination as a reporter, that is just gut wrenching to experience. But the administration is holding strong, and they're not going to be swayed by the way that the media is trying to, get them to move on or call this cancel culture and frame this as a mistake by the administration. And so that should be heartening to the president's base and to Americans who feel scared right now.
This risks a major rift between the administration and the base, though. I mean, the Charlie Kirk legacy is growing, louder by the day, and it does seem that Bondi is out of tune with that. As we've discussed already, she's bungled a fair few things, and yes, the president may want to throw a protective arm around her. But do you think her political, an answer from each of you, if I may, is her political fate safe, or could we see her quietly binned off at some point?
Well, to look for, to answer this question, you kind of can look to who is being instated at the FBI. We see Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who's now coming in to be co-FBI director. And I wouldn't necessarily take that as a move that there's people who are unhappy with the FBI leadership. I think you can also interpret that as people being maybe unhappy with the DOJ leadership or putting him in a position to do something better. But I do think that President Trump has been protective of his cabinet this time around. I don't think there has been a reason, or I don't think there's been an urge of him to fire anyone. And so for now, I think Pam Bondi's safe. Patrice,
one, will she survive? And two, should she survive?
I think she will survive, but I don't think she'll survive all 4 years. Survive in the role, I should say, just to clarify. I do think that there comes a point where, and we saw this with the back chat signal gate, where you had a member of the cabinet who had to be removed, or a senior leadership team moved into a different position, right? Because at some point the heat becomes bigger than what the administration is trying to accomplish, and so when you have so many different scandals, and right now people's minds are not on what happened with the Jeffrey Epstein files, but that can come right back for, given a month or two, once we start to see the prosecution of Charlie Kirk's assassin. And so, if there's some sort of third issue that comes up where people perceive that, she's just not doing her job, then I could absolutely foresee President Trump remove her. But I will say that, to Reagan's point, we have not seen turmoil or turnover in the administration. And I think that's a credit to the people that President Trump selected, who this time around are very much committed to his agenda, are not trying to steal the stage and the star power, and, are extremely effective communicators. And I think actually we're seeing that she's weaker on that last point.
Yeah, active Donald Trump, yes, well, plenty to write about, but maybe not quite as much as first time around. Guys, we'll be back in the States next week. Hope to see you again back on here. Thank you very much, Reagan, Patrice.